Hi, in this lesson we'll discuss about how to enter some data in our database and other interesting Laravel features. We managed to create our database and tables. Now we need to add some records to our database. We can do that by simply using the Insert tab of phpMyAdmin, but Laravel provides us a better way to do this. If we open the database seeds folder, we can see that this contains a file called databaseseeder.php. This is the master seeder file, the one that will run our custom seeders. I'll start by uncommenting the call function on line 14. This will allow us to run the user table seeder file when we perform the seeding. But first we need to create this file. I'll create it right in the seeds folder. We'll start by declaring a class, one called userTableSeeder, which will extend the seeder class. We'll use this class to seed our user table. I'm going to save the file and give it the name of userTableSeeder.php. Next, let's add a function that will actually run our seeder. The function will be called, you guess it, run. It's important to keep this notation and not rename it to something else, otherwise you will not be able to seed your database. In our run function, I will use the userCreate method to add some users to the users table. This will be an array containing our users' properties. I'll start with username and will give its value as Christian. Next, I'll put the email and this will be set to christian@library.com. Next, there's the password. For simplicity, I will type 1234. Please note that the password is not hashed or encrypted at this time. Let's run our seeder. Back to our command prompt window, I will use the php artisan db:/seed to proceed. I will have to confirm with yes and there's an error. One telling us that the class userTableSeeder does not exist. Back to our code editor and indeed, I forgot to define my PHP opening tag, so Laravel wasn't able to find this class as this was not a valid PHP file. Let's give it one more try. Back to the command prompt window and php artisan db:/seed. Again, we'll confirm with yes and this time it worked. Let's verify this in phpMyAdmin. If I browse the users table, we've got one record. It looks good, but the only problem is that the password has been stored in plain text, not encrypted. Let's get back to our code editor and there are a few ways to solve this problem. Obviously, the easiest one is to simply use the #make function to encrypt the password before inserting it into the database. So I'll put #make and inside the parentheses I will enter my password in quotes. Let's run the seeder one more time. We'll again type php artisan db:/seed in my command prompt window. This time we get another error. Integrity constraint violation. Duplicate entry Christian for k users username unique. This error is self-explanatory. We've set up our table to only accept unique values for the username field. We already inserted the value Christian in this field when we ran our previous db:/seed command. This time we try to add a new record having the same username. That's why we received this error. Anyway, there's a simple solution to this. Back to my code editor, before the userCreate function call, I will enter a new line which will truncate or delete our table data. So I'll put user::truncate and that's all we need to do. Back to our command prompt window and running again php artisan db:/seed, we'll confirm with yes and this time the seed succeeded. Let's refresh our users table and see the changes. As expected, the password is now encrypted. we can see that even if we used a short password containing only 4 characters, the encrypted or hashed value is much longer. That's why we specified that our password field should hold up to 100 characters. Now, this solution to hash the password before inserting it into the database is fine, but I'll show you a more elegant way to do this by using the user's model. The advantage of doing this is that in any place of your project, you don't have to deal with the encryption of the password. This will be done automatically by the model. So I'll switch back to the plain text password in my Cedar file. Let's start by opening up the user model located in the models folder. I will add a new function to this model, one that will automatically encrypt our password before saving it. The name of the function will be setPasswordAttribute. This function will accept one parameter. We'll call it value in this case. It's important to keep this naming convention. Set is the actual action performed on our attribute or property, and password is the actual attribute that we want to modify. We can set other attributes of our user, like username for example, in case we want to alter that. But in this case, we want to modify that password value before inserting it into the database. That's why the function name will have to be setPasswordAttribute. Our function will only contain one line, which is this attributes, and inside brackets we'll put the attribute that we want to modify, which in our case is password, between quotes, equals, and if we simply put the parameter here, then our password will remain unchanged. Instead, we need to hash it, and we'll again use the hash make function to do that. Remember that in our Cedar file, the password is in plain text right now. Let's run the seeding command and see the results. If I refresh the browser now, we can see the password is still encrypted, so our function has worked. Now, in any file in our project, if we specify the password in plain text, this will be automatically encrypted by our model before inserting it into the database. That's great. Back to our Cedar file, I want to add a few more users to the table. I will simply copy the user create function and will paste it 2 more times. For the second user, let's set the username to be Michael and the email michael@library.com. The password will remain the same for simplicity, 1234. And for the third user, let's set its name to Rachel and email to rachel@library.com. Let's run our seed command again. Back to the command prompt window and typing php artisan db:seed. We'll confirm with yes and let's see the result. If we browse our table, we can find all 3 users there, and the password is encrypted for all. Great! Next step is to repeat this process for our books. So we will be seeding some books. First, let's create our book model. The user model is created by Laravel by default, but for other model we have to create them ourselves. We'll start by creating a new file in the models folder. We'll declare a new class called book, which will extend the Eloquent class. And that's all we need for our model. Next, let's open the master Cedar file and we'll duplicate the call function, this time using our books table Cedar. This will make sure that when we run the php artisan db seed command, both our Cedar files will be executed. Then, inside the seeds folder, I will create a new file, one that will hold our book table Cedar class declaration. Again, this class will extend the Cedar Laravel class. I will write the run function again and will save the file as booktablecedar.php. Inside the run function, I will start with book truncate method call that will delete our table's data before inserting new records. Next, we'll use the book ;create function to declare some books. I will create 3 books. One will be Journey to the Center of the World by Jules Verne. The other one will be The Adventure of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. And the last one will be Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. I will assign each of these books to a user by using the 1, 2, and 3 as user ID column, each representing the ID of our users. Let's run the seed command and see what happens. Back to the command prompt window, I will again type php artisan db:/seed and will press enter. Next, I will confirm with yes. Great, both of our tables have been successfully seeded. Let's verify that in phpMyAdmin. Our users are still present, and now we also have 3 books, each assigned to one of our users. Now that we have some records in our database, let's see how we can display these to our users. I'll start by opening the controller file, which is usercontroller.php. Next, I will delete the return statement and will declare a new user variable. Let's grab our first user from the users table. We'll use the find method of the user class by passing 1 as a parameter. This will return the user which has the ID of 1. Next, let's see how we can grab the books that this user has borrowed from the library. We'll declare a new variable called book and we'll use the where function of the book class to grab the books from the database. In this case, we'll use 3 parameters for the where function. This will look just like a SQL query to our database. So I will type user ID in single quotes as the first parameter. Then we'll use the equal sign again in single quotes as the second parameter, and for the third one we'll use our previous declared variable user and we'll return its ID, which in this case it will be 1. So the whole line can be better explained as query the books table and find the ones that has the user ID or first parameter equal or second parameter to our ID property of our user variable or third parameter. And we finish the line with the actual function that will return 1 or more books. In case we want to return all the books, we will use the get function. Otherwise, if you want to return just one record, one book, we will use the first function, which will return our first record. In this case, I want to see all the assigned books, so I will use get, even though I assigned only one book to each user in my database so far. I will rename my variable to be books instead of book, as this will hold more books. Next, let's return a view, one that we will call it home. We'll pass our books variable to this view. So, in my views folder, I will create a new file. I'll save the file as home.blade.php. I'll start by declaring a standard HTML page. Inside our body tag, we'll use the for each instruction to loop through our books. So I'll type for each books as book, and on the next line we'll use the list item element to display the book's title. So inside double curly braces, I'll put the book variable and its title property. Alright, let's refresh our main homepage and see if this works. Great! The book called Journey to the Center of the World is returned. This is the book assigned to the first user in our database. In order to verify this, let's check our database records. Here we can see the users table and here the books table. The book which corresponds to the user ID of 1 is indeed Journey to the Center of the World. Back to our code editor, let's display the writer of the book along with its title. So I'll add written by, and in double curly braces we'll put the writer property of the book variable. Let's refresh our homepage and everything works as expected. In order to check that our controller returns all the books assigned to a user, I'm going to edit the user ID of the third book and will set it also to 1. So, the user with the ID of 1 has now 2 books assigned. Let's refresh our homepage and again we get the expected result. Back to our editor, let's close all these files and let's open up the controller file, usercontroller.php. It all looks good, but the line that returns our book might be a bit harder to understand. I'm going to comment it and let's try a more elegant way of writing this line. What do you think about books equals user variable and then we grab its book property? It looks much nicer than the previous line, but will this work? It could be working, let's see. Let's refresh the homepage again and the invalid argument supplied for each. So our book variable is probably null as our statement didn't return the books for the users. But what can we do about it? Welcome to database relationships. In Laravel, we can specify a relationship between the database tables, something like one-to-many or many-to-many for example. Sounds familiar? Let's see how can we achieve this. All the necessary code has to be written in the models, as these are the ones that interact with our database. First, let's open up the user.php file located in the models folder. I'm going to add a new function to it, one called book. It's important to note that the name of this function is the same as the model that the user will be in relation with, book in our case, but written in lowercase. This function takes no arguments and will return the actual relationship of the user with the books. We can say that one user can borrow many books at a specific time, so our relationship will be has many. Also note the camel case notation here, with lowercase h and uppercase m. And the argument to finish this function will be book, the name of our model, but this time with capital B, the exact name of our model class for the books. So we can now say that one user has many books. This will be a one-to-many relationship type. But what is the book relationship with the user? Let's open up book.php, also located in the models folder, and let's add a function to it. The name of the function will be user, as the books will be in relation with the users. And this time we'll use the belongs to function to create the relationship with the user model by specifying user as an argument. So this can be translated as each book belongs to a user. This will be a many-to-one relationship, as many books can belong to a single user. Please remember that for simplicity we decided that one user can hold multiple books while a single book of the same title exists in the library. Otherwise, the relationship between the user and the books will have been many-to-many. Let's save the file and refresh our browser window. And the magic happened. Now our books are being displayed by using a simple assignment in line 8 of our controller. So, to conclude this lesson, we discuss about how we can add records to our database by using the Laravel seeds. We saw how we can modify the model's attributes before saving the data in database, and we did this at the model level. We also discovered how simple it is to implement the relationship between our database tables and how easy it is to query and display the data after that. Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson and see you soon.